In my opinion, this is a weakness of Amherst. In fact, I don't think Amherst really emphasizes engineering and technology nearly enough. I think it's not sufficiently appreciated here for its central role in a modern liberal arts curriculum. In fact, I don't think there are very many liberal arts schools that do. Rice is one, happens to be like that. My daughter goes to Grinnell. It has a little bit more of that even than Amherst does. You know, if I were young and I was capable, I would absolutely study computer science. I honestly don't think that you can deny that all of the greatest change makers right now in the world are those who are computer scientists, but who also view the world the way we do as liberal arts. This is what makes Mark Zuckerberg unique, is that he is not just a computer scientist, but he is a computer scientist, and if he hadn't been one, he would never have done that. And we're not all going to create Facebooks, but I'm currently, this other article I'm writing is about Jack Dorsey, who invented Twitter. He's also a hugely multidisciplinary person who also is a computer scientist. So if you can, I absolutely urge you to study it. And if you don't know how to code, just suffuse yourself in the realities of technology. It is not the slightest bit coincidental, in my opinion, that all four of us are English majors who are not the slightest bit afraid of tech, and it was our willingness to dive into things technological, even though we really didn't have the qualifications for it, that led to the careers we all now have, all four of us.
And in a way, the Facebook effect, David's book talks about how through a network people then picked up the code as opposed to the other way around, that they met Mark and learned how to code, it seems like. Made it seem simple to me. I'm sure it isn't.
But the truth is, too, I mean, you can learn that. You know that you need to because your instinct is telling you. Listen to your instinct. You know you have to learn it. Go and learn it. And you don't need necessarily Amherst to put it in the classroom for you.
I assume UMass has classes on it.
And you don't have to be a coder. A lot of us can't do it. I can't do it. I would never have been able to do it. However, just don't be afraid of that realm.
Right.
I'll tell you that from my perspective, I'll echo some of the comments that have been made here. I can speak the equivalent of, I would say, like foreign restaurant type of fluency on technology and coding and APIs and screen resolution and chipsets and that kind of thing. So enough to kind of be dangerous. But if I had a liberal arts grad come to me at the right time and say, you know, I put on the best developer hat that I could, and I tried to find your SDK, and this is what I searched for, and it took me this many clicks to get it. I thought that was interesting. And then when I opened it up, I found that the documentation for how to actually use this SDK really seemed to surprise me, because I found there was a code sample here written in this way, but then another code sample here written in this way, and I didn't understand that. And then when I went to go say, okay, how do I publish my application when I'm done, publish my app? That wasn't clear. Where's the lighted pathway to that? All that requires is paying attention. You don't have to understand the secret sauce, the inside baseball, to figure out why all that is the way that it is. But understand that in the technology world, just as the Amherst may have a gap on teaching the secret sauce, the ones and zeros, the rest of the engineering world has a major gap when it comes to understanding user interface, user experience, clarity of writing, clarity of thought. And that's where you have value. And what I would advise is, learn as much as you can about the computer science so that you too can be dangerous. But understand that hybrids are right now, from my perspective, are in high demand.
And I think that the hybrids, really what we're talking about is liberal arts majors and looking at the world through multiple lenses. I mean, each one of us touched on that, whether it was the intersection of technology in the public sector or communication and technology, or we all talked about it. And I think that the way that we're really trained to see the world is different than somebody who's a straight out of journalism school. And I found that people, again, who were liberal arts majors just saw problems differently because they knew how to attack the problem. They knew how to ask questions. And through those questions came up to better, more strategic decisions and solutions than someone who was a much more linear thinker.
It always helps, in marketing there's this concept about positioning, of how you describe yourself in a way. And I think what you're hearing is if they're looking for a bunch of people who all they know is computer science, and that's still a job that makes sense for you, then you have to bring in some of the other background you have. It's as simple as that. I would say when you go into job interviews as opposed to networking interviews, you really ought to have in your mind why you're ideal for that job. Because if you don't have it, the person interviewing you is very unlikely to come up with that on their own. So if you can think through, why am I the right person for here, that's what you need to do first.
And I think when you're going into that job interview, you talk to anybody and everybody who's ever worked at that company.
Amen.
And so through my networking that I had done, I had talked to a lot of people who used to work at my job. And they said, you're not going to get the job, this much healthcare experience. Somebody else said, all you got to do is this woman needs to like the person that she's working with. And I said, I can get her to like me. So I'm in. I can sell the fact that I'm smart and I can get the healthcare piece. But I knew exactly what I needed to do to get that job. And that came through this network that I had built up. And again, I had moved to Minneapolis. I didn't know anybody, and I tapped immediately the Amherst network, and that was the start of my virus, I used to call it. But use that network. That's another way you can use those networks as, hey, I'm applying for this job. What do you know about this company?
You know, I think despite the importance of computer and all that stuff, being a multidisciplinary thinker, which both these people are saying, is more important. So I would say there's a trick you could use in any job interview. Any job interview. If they ask you, why are you good for this job? Say, I'm a multidisciplinary thinker. And I'm not joking. There is no job in the modern world that will not help you in, and very few people consider themselves that way. And the way I look at Amherst is, you know, it is an extraordinary and rare, astonishingly rare on a global scale privilege to have had this education. And you have an obligation with this education to be a bigger picture thinker. This is a requirement. The investment that's been made in you is astonishingly high. You know, I know my daughter just didn't get into this school, and I'm pissed off about that. But I know how hard it is. But the point, even still, I came for this. Believe me, it took me some thinking. But the fact is, I think you can and you have to take a bigger picture view. And I would say almost all my Amherst friends, almost all of whom have been very successful in a multiple range of things, are bigger picture thinkers than the other people they work with in their fields. And I would even take it further and say the state of the world is so grave right now. We live in such a difficult world so fraught with problems that part of your obligation as Amherst graduates with this uniquely multidisciplinary liberal arts education is to always incorporate in your thinking about what you do, how is it addressing the scope of the world's problems, which are severe. Don't just do some crappy job. Do a job that makes the world a better place. And I think also all four of us did not go into our careers to make a whole lot of money. I mean, I can assure you, publishing is not the place you're going to get rich. Journalism in general is not the place you're going to get rich. PR's a little bit better.
A little better.
But
consulting's pretty good.
Car sales, I don't know.
The one thing I want to underscore from what Kristen said is, you also have research skills. And it does amaze me how many people, I'm not talking about informational interview or networking, but they come in to be interviewed, let's say, by Hawk Partners. We're a mid-sized firm. We have 40 employees. We have a website. There's plenty of information on the website. It amazes me how many people come into a real interview and kind of say, well, tell me a little about Hawk Partners. Whereas we're a research firm also. You assume they know how to research. You guys know how to research. You wouldn't have gotten here or been able to graduate without knowing that. Do the research. And the research includes what Kristen said. Who are you going to interview? If you can figure that out, how are they going to decide? Because most of these decisions are not all left brain. It isn't like we're looking for the best person. We have a score sheet, a spreadsheet. This is the winner. It has a lot to do with the chemistry. And making somebody like you is always a great first step.
Right.
Always a great first step. They'll figure out then. You give them the positioning, they'll twist it, they'll be your fan. And, so do the research. Really understand what